Have you ever noticed how the quietest moments are not always the most peaceful? How a room empty of all sound can be filled with the deafening noise of a silent conversation. A conversation with someone who is not there. In the silent theatre of the mind, a story is always playing, and for so many, it is a story of waiting. There is a part of the human spirit that can become a permanent resident of this quiet waiting room. It sits patiently, sometimes for years, sometimes for a lifetime, holding a space for something it believes is owed. It waits for an apology. It waits for an acknowledgement, a knock on the door that will finally set the timeline straight, that will validate the wound it has been nursing. The room itself is not a prison. The doors are not locked. The windows are not barred. And yet, the person does not leave. Their entire field of energy, their focus, is tethered to that door, listening for a footstep that may never come. This waiting is a subtle form of suffering. It is not a sharp, acute pain, but a low, chronic ache. It is the weight of an unsent letter held in the heart. The mind composes this letter over and over again. It rehearses the words, refines the sentences, imagines the moment of its delivery and the flood of relief that would surely follow. But the letter is never sent, because its true recipient is not meant to write it. They are meant to receive it. And so, the waiting continues. The world outside goes on. Seasons change, people laugh, new stories begin. But inside that quiet room of the psyche, time is frozen. It is always the moment just after the hurt, suspended in the amber of resentment, forever awaiting repair from an external hand. Perhaps you know this room. Perhaps you can feel its dimensions in a quiet corner of your own heart. It is the place you go when a memory surfaces, unbidden. It is the energy you feel when a certain name is spoken. It is the part of you that believes your peace is a fragile object being held in someone else's pocket. You believe that if they would simply reach in and hand it back, you could finally be whole. You could finally leave the room and rejoin the flow of life. But the ancient wisdom traditions, from the Stoic philosophers to the Zen masters, whisper a difficult, liberating truth. They suggest that no one outside of you holds the key to your peace. The key was never lost. It was never given away. It has been in your possession all along. The work is not to will the other person to act. The work is not to endlessly plead your case to an empty chair. The work is to turn your gaze away from the door and toward the interior of the room itself, to examine the nature of the waiting, to understand the part of you that has chosen to stay. This journey we are about to embark upon is not about forgetting. It is not about pretending the hurt did not happen. It is not about forcing forgiveness or feigning indifference. It is about something far more profound. It is about healing the part of you that awaits an apology. It is about gently showing that part of yourself that its worth is not conditional. Its peace is not a negotiation. Its freedom does not depend on the words or actions of another. We will explore the stories the mind tells itself, the anchors of memory that keep it tethered to the past, and the subtle art of laying down the weight you have been carrying for so long, a weight that was never truly yours to hold. We will learn that the absence of an apology can be a gift, an invitation to discover a form of peace that is unshakable, because it is generated from within. It is a peace that comes from the quiet, powerful act of giving yourself the closure you seek. So, find your comfortable space, let the outer world fade, and allow this journey to begin. The room we spoke of, the one of quiet waiting, is not built of walls and a ceiling. It is constructed from something far stronger, yet entirely invisible. It is built from memory, not the gentle, fading memory of a summer long past, but the sharp, crystallized memory of a wound. This memory is an anchor, dropped from the ship of the present moment into the dark waters of the past. The ship wants to sail on, to feel the wind and see new horizons, but it cannot. It is held fast, straining against a weight it can no longer see. The mind does this. It forges an identity around the anchor. It becomes the one who is wronged, the one who is owed. And this identity feels solid, important, real. But an anchor's only job is to hold you in place, to stop you from moving with the natural current of life, which is always, always flowing forward. There is an old Zen story that illuminates this. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were on a long journey. Their path led them to a river, its banks swollen and muddy from heavy rains. A young woman in a fine silk kimono stood there, distressed, unable to cross without soiling her beautiful garments. Without a word, the senior monk, whose name was Tanzan, walked up to her, lifted her into his arms, carried her across the churning water, and set her down gently on the other side. He bowed, and the two monks continued their journey. For hours, the junior monk, Ekido, was silent. His face was a mask of disapproval. He walked with a stiff, righteous anger. He replayed the scene in his mind again and again. Monks were not to touch women. They were to remain aloof, detached from worldly affairs. How could his master have been so careless, so indulgent? As dusk began to settle, Aikido could no longer contain his indignation. He burst out, "Master, how could you do that? Our vows forbid us from getting so close to women. You broke the rules. You touched her." Tanzan looked at his young companion. His eyes filled not with defense, but with a calm, gentle curiosity. He smiled faintly and said, "I left the girl there by the river hours ago. Are you still carrying her?" This question echoes through the centuries, and it is a question for you now, as you lie here, seeking rest. What are you still carrying? What conversation has ended, yet you continue to have it in your mind? What slight, what injustice, what moment of disrespect has been over for days, or weeks, or years, but remains a heavy, breathing presence in your inner world? You are Aikido. We are all Aikido. The mind attaches itself to the perceived transgression, believing that by holding on to it, by re-examining it, by judging it, we are somehow performing a vital, righteous duty. But look closer. The person who hurt you, the person from whom you await an apology, they are the woman by the river. The event is done. They have been set down on the other side. They are walking their own path, perhaps not even aware of the weight you carry on their behalf. The only one still feeling the strain, the only one whose journey is burdened, is you. The apology you wait for is your mind's justification for continuing to carry her. You tell yourself, when she acknowledges what happened, then I will put this down. But Tanzan shows us a different way. His way is one of freedom. He did not deny the woman's need. He met the moment, acted with simple compassion, and then he let it go completely. He did not carry the story of his good deed, nor the story of her predicament. The moment ended, and he ended with it. To let go is not to say that what happened was acceptable. It is to acknowledge that it is over. The only place it lives now is in the narrative your mind clings to. It is an anchor, and an anchor is not a tool for justice. It is a tool for stagnation. In the quiet of this moment, can you feel the subtle weight of what you are carrying? Do not judge it. Do not force it away. Simply notice it. Acknowledge the incredible effort your mind has expended, holding this anchor in place. And just consider, for a moment, what it might feel like to let the rope slip through your fingers. The act of carrying the past, of holding that person by the river, is not a passive state. It requires immense, continuous energy. So, we must ask, what fuels this effort? What is the mechanism in the mind that makes a past event feel so present and so heavy? The Buddha, in his profound understanding of the human heart, offered an answer in a simple, powerful teaching. He said that whenever we experience misfortune, we are struck by two arrows. The first arrow is the event itself. It is the sharp, unavoidable pain of life. It is the illness, the loss, the accident. It is the harsh word, the act of betrayal, the apology that was never given. This arrow is real. Its sting is immediate and undeniable. To be alive is to be subject to the first arrow. No amount of wisdom or meditation can make a person immune to it. It is the price of admission for this human experience. A wise person does not try to avoid the first arrow. They understand. It is part of the terrain, but it is the second arrow that causes our true suffering. The second arrow is our reaction to the first. It is the arrow we shoot at ourselves. After the first arrow of betrayal strikes, the second arrow of the mind follows. It sounds like this. This always happens to me. I can't believe they did that. My life is ruined because of them. I will never be able to trust anyone again. Why am I so worthless that they would treat me this way? This is the commentary. This is the judgment, the resentment, the fear, the self-pity. This is the story. The first arrow is pain. The second arrow is suffering. The part of you that waits for an apology is not just wounded by the first arrow. It is pierced by 1,000-second arrows of its own making. The initial event may have lasted a moment, an hour, a day. But the story about the event, the internal narrative of injustice, can last a lifetime. The mind becomes a battlefield where the original skirmish is reenacted endlessly. You rehearse the arguments. You imagine what you should have said. You feel the flush of anger and the cold sting of humiliation over and over again, each time driving the second arrow a little deeper. Look with gentle honesty at the wound you carry. The original hurt, the first arrow, was it not a single, definable event? A conversation, an action, a silence when there should have been words. That was the event. Now, consider the aftermath. The hours spent analyzing it, the conversations with friends to validate your anger, the sleepless nights spent replaying the scene, the subtle ways you have allowed that event to define your choices, to curdle your trust, to color your expectations of the world. Each of these is a second arrow, and then a third, and a fourth. This is not to place blame upon yourself. It is not your fault that the first arrow was fired. But liberation comes from the profound realization that you are the one holding the bow for the second. The person who wronged you shot only one arrow. You have shot all the rest. The apology you seek is for that first arrow. You want the archer to feel remorse for their shot. But that apology, even if it were to arrive, cannot heal the wounds from the arrows you have shot into yourself. Only you can do that. And the first step is to simply stop firing. The path to peace is not to deny the first arrow, but to cultivate a quality of wise attention, a stillness of mind that allows the first arrow to strike without automatically reaching for the second. It is to feel the sting of pain without adding the story of suffering. It is to see the woman by the river and to see your mind's habit of wanting to carry her. It is to notice the urge to create a drama around the pain. In this noticing, a space is created, a moment of breath. And in that space lies the freedom to let the bow fall from your hand. In that space, healing is no longer dependent on anyone else. It becomes your own sacred work. The question then arises, who is this archer of the second arrow? Who, within the vast landscape of the self, insists on retelling the story of the wound? To understand this, we must be willing to look into the mirror of the psyche, and not just at the surface reflection, but at the figure that lingers in the depths, just beyond the light. This figure is known in modern psychology as the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is not a monster to be vanquished. It is simply everything within us that we have disowned. It is the repository for all the traits and feelings we were taught were unacceptable. The anger we were told was unladylike or impolite. The vulnerability we were told was weakness. The neediness we were told was burdensome. We push these parts of our being into the dark, hoping they would disappear, but they do not disappear. They coalesce in the shadows of the mind, forming a powerful, unseen force that influences our lives, our choices, and our suffering. And it is this shadow self that often holds the grievance. The conscious mind, the part of you that listens to this now, desires peace. It wants to move on, to be free, to let go. But the shadow self has a different agenda. For the shadow, the grievance is a source of identity. The story of being wronged gives it a powerful reason to exist. In the narrative of injustice, the shadow finally has a voice. It feels righteous, validated, and seen. It can say, "See, my anger is justified. My pain is real. The world is just as unsafe as I always believed." Letting go of the need for an apology is therefore not a simple act of mental hygiene. It is a profound psychological negotiation with this hidden part of yourself. To the shadow, letting go feels like a betrayal of its own reality. It feels like saying, the pain didn't matter. And so it clings. It waits for the apology not merely for closure, but as the ultimate proof of its own existence. The apology from the other person is the external world finally validating the shadow's secret truth. This is why you may find yourself in a loop. A part of you sincerely wants to forgive and forget, while another part finds a strange, bitter comfort in nursing the wound. That is the shadow self, feeling a grim satisfaction each time the memory is replayed. Each time the injustice feels fresh. It is the part of you that is still carrying the woman from the river, because if it puts her down, what would it have left to define itself by? The path to healing this division is not to fight the shadow. You cannot cast out a part of yourself. The path is one of courage and radical self-compassion. It is the work of turning around, facing the figure in the mirror, and speaking to it with kindness. It is to acknowledge its presence, to say to that wounded, angry part of you, I see you. I feel your pain. I know why you are holding on so tightly. Your anger is valid. Your hurt is real. You do not need an external verdict to legitimize your experience. I legitimize it now. This is the beginning of integration. When you offer your own awareness and compassion to this exiled part, its desperate need for external validation begins to soften. It no longer has to scream for attention through the act of holding a grievance, because it is finally being heard by the one person whose opinion truly matters, you. You are bringing the shadow out of the cold and into the warmth of your own conscious heart. This is not an act of surrender to the pain, but an act of reclaiming the power you had projected onto the person you were waiting for. You are taking back the role of the judge, the witness, and the healer. You are becoming whole. Once we have faced the shadow in the mirror and acknowledged the part of us that holds the grievance, we are met with a fundamental choice. Where do we direct our energy? The ancient Stoic philosophers, men like Seneca and the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, built their entire system of tranquility upon a single, powerful distinction: the difference between what is within our control and what is not. This wisdom can be understood through the story of a man with 2 gardens. This man was a passionate gardener. He had a small, walled courtyard garden behind his home, and a larger plot of land just outside the walls, bordering a public road. The inner garden was his own. He controlled the soil, the seeds, the flow of water from his well. It was entirely his domain. The outer garden, however, was subject to the world. The weather determined if it would flourish or fail. Passing animals would nibble at the leaves. The opinions of travelers on the road would drift over the fence, some praising his work, others scoffing at it, but the man was obsessed with the outer garden. He spent his days in a state of constant anxiety, trying to control the uncontrollable. He would yell at the sky for rain, then curse the clouds when they brought too much. He would build flimsy fences that the rabbits always found a way through. He would stand by the road, pleading with passers-by to validate his efforts, his heart soaring with their praise and plummeting with their criticism. All the while, his inner garden, the one entirely within his power to cultivate, began to wither. The soil grew dry and cracked. Weeds sprouted between the stones. He was so consumed by the chaos of the world outside his walls that he neglected the sanctuary within them. He had forgotten where his true work lay. This gardener is the human mind caught in the trap of waiting. The apology you seek, the acknowledgement you crave, the justice you feel you are owed. These are all flowers in someone else's garden. They exist outside the walls of your own control. You can stand at the fence of your heart, pointing at their patch of earth, demanding that they tend to it. You can describe in detail how they should water it, how they should nurture it into the bloom of remorse you so desperately need to see. You can spend your days, your months, your years, with your life's energy focused entirely on what is happening or not happening over there. But you cannot make their flowers grow. This is the fundamental, painful, liberating truth. The Stoics teach that all our suffering, every bit of it, comes from this mistake: trying to garden another person's soul. We believe our peace of mind is a crop that must be harvested from their land. The work of wisdom is to make a profound pivot. It is to turn away from the fence, with all its maddening uncertainty, and to walk back into your own courtyard. It is to kneel down on the soil that is truly yours. This soil is the garden of your responses, your judgments, and your will. Tending this inner garden means pulling the weeds of catastrophic thinking, the second arrows. It means watering the ground with self-compassion, especially for the shadow self who has been standing guard for so long. It means planting the seeds of new thoughts. My peace is my responsibility. My worth is not determined by their actions. I can give myself the kindness I was seeking from them. You have absolute control here. No one can stop you from thinking a more compassionate thought. No one can prevent you from choosing a response of quiet dignity over one of resentful rage. This is your sacred ground. This is not an act of resignation. It is an act of supreme empowerment. It is the realization that you have been trying to command the weather, when all along you had the power to build a greenhouse. By focusing on your own garden, you cultivate a peace that is not dependent on sunshine from an external source. It becomes a hardy, resilient peace, one that can withstand the inevitable storms of the outer world, because its roots are deep in the soil of what you can control. The work begins now, with a simple question. In this very moment, where is your attention? Is it at the fence, staring outward? Or is it here, in the rich, waiting earth of your own heart? The choice to turn inward, to tend to your own garden, is the beginning of wisdom. But as you do, you will encounter the most persistent weed, the one that seems to have the deepest roots. This is the story. The narrative of the grievance is not a passive memory file stored in the brain. It is a living entity. Imagine it as a thirsty ghost that resides within you. Every day it comes to you, holding out an empty cup, and it asks you to fill it. You fill it with your attention. You pour in your resentment. You top it off with a fresh dose of indignation as you replay the events. And the story drinks. It drinks your vital energy, your life force, the very water that should be nourishing your own garden. And it is never satisfied. Tomorrow, it will be back with its empty cup, demanding more. This entity, this story, is the primary architecture of what we call the ego. The ego is not a solid, fixed thing. It is a process of identification. It is the storyteller in the mind that creates a character called me. And for this me to feel real, it needs a plot. It needs drama, conflict, a past that defines it, and a future it worries about. A simple story of peace and contentment is boring to the ego, but a story of injustice, a story of being wronged, of being the noble victim in a conflict with a clear villain. This is a story with energy. It is a story that makes the me feel solid, important, and righteous. The part of you waiting for an apology is a character in a story written by your ego. This character's entire identity is organized around the wound. Its lines are about the injustice. Its motivation is to receive the apology that will prove its story was true all along. To let go of this waiting is, from the ego's perspective, a terrifying prospect. It is not just letting go of a memory. It is letting go of a character that has become central to its identity. It feels like a kind of death here. Zen philosophy offers a radical key, the teaching of anatta, or no self. This is perhaps the most misunderstood and yet most liberating of all its insights. No self does not mean that you do not exist. It means that you are not the story. You are not the character of the righteous victim. You are not your thoughts, your emotions, or your memories. These are phenomena that arise and pass away within you, like clouds moving through the vast, open sky. Your true nature is the sky, not any single cloud. The sky is not wounded when a dark storm cloud passes through it. It remains open, untouched, and serene. Consider this deeply. The you who was wronged is a mental construction. It is a bundle of thoughts, feelings, and sensations held together by the glue of the story. But you, the awareness that is noticing all of this right now, are something else entirely. You are the silent, spacious consciousness that is aware of the story, aware of the anger, aware of the sadness. You are the witness, and the witness is already free. The practice, then, is one of disidentification. When the familiar story of the grievance arises, as it will, instead of immediately becoming the main character and feeling all the old pains, you can try a different approach. You can notice it from a distance. You can say, internally, the story of what happened is arising now. The feeling of anger is present. The thought, it was so unfair, is here. See it as a weather pattern moving through the sky of your mind. You are not denying it. You are not repressing it. You are simply refusing to identify with it. You are refusing to pour your precious life energy into its cup. When you do this, something remarkable happens. The story, deprived of its fuel source, your belief in it, begins to lose its charge. The thirsty ghost, no longer being fed, starts to become transparent. It weakens. A space opens up. In this space, there is peace. It is the peace of the sky that was there all along, behind the clouds. You are not destroying the story. You are simply withdrawing your investment in it. You are letting it go, and in doing so, you are reclaiming all the water it used to drink, to finally nourish the garden of your own true self. When the story that drinks your water begins to fade from lack of nourishment, a strange quiet descends. At first, this quiet might not feel like peace. It might feel like an empty stage after a drama has ended, a void where there was once intense, consuming activity. We are left in a space of incompletion, a state of limbo. The mind, accustomed to the familiar cage of its grievance, can feel lost without its bars. This leads us to the heart of the matter, the very nature of our perceived prison. Imagine a person sitting in a cage. The bars are cold and solid. Through the bars, they can see the world passing by, sunshine, laughter, life. Their attention, however, is not on the world outside. It is fixed, with laser-like intensity, on the heavy, ornate lock on the door. They believe their entire existence hinges on this lock. The one who put them in the cage, their jailer, is the only one who has the key. And so, they wait. They spend their days studying the lock, imagining the unique shape of the key, rehearsing the speech they will give when the jailer finally returns. Their freedom, they are certain, is a future event. entirely dependent on an act of mercy from another. This prisoner is the part of the human psyche that waits for an apology. The jailer is the person who wronged them. The key is the apology itself. The prisoner believes, with every fiber of their being, that they are trapped. The narrative of their captivity is the most real thing in their world. It is a story they tell themselves every morning and every night. I am here because of them. I can only be free when they decide to release me. This belief is the true substance of the bars, but one day, after years of this vigil, exhausted from the effort of waiting, the prisoner slumps against the door, and in that moment of surrender, they feel it give way. With a soft click, the door swings silently open. A stunned silence follows. They stare at the opening, at the free world beyond, and then back at the lock. It was never latched. The door was never locked. The cage, which had defined their entire reality, was an illusion held in place only by their unwavering belief in its integrity. They were not a prisoner awaiting a pardon. They were a free being who had chosen to sit inside an open cage. This is the great, secret gift of the unanswered apology. If the person who hurt you had come back with a key, you would have experienced a conditional freedom. You would have learned that your peace is in someone else's hands. You would have felt relief, but it would be the fragile relief of a dependent, forever looking over their shoulder, wondering if they might be locked up again. But because they did not come, because the key was never offered, you are presented with a far more profound opportunity. You are forced, by the silence of the world, to turn to the door yourself. You are invited to discover that it was never locked. The freedom you discover in this way is absolute. It is unshakable. It cannot be given, and therefore, it can never be taken away. The absence of the apology is not the universe denying you justice. It is the universe guiding you toward a higher form of freedom, a freedom that is self-generated and unconditional. It is a tough, but compassionate grace. It weans you off the hope for external salvation and forces you to find the invincible power within yourself. So, feel this in your body now. Feel the space you are in, the one that has felt like a cage of waiting. Feel the part of you that has been staring at the lock, praying for a key. And now, in your imagination, allow yourself to simply lean against the door. Don't force it, just gently. Test its reality. Feel it swing open. Feel the air from the outside world on your skin. It is the air of a peace that does not require permission. It is the air of a healing that you can grant yourself. You are never truly captive. You are free to walk out whenever you are ready. To step out of the cage is to step into the fresh air of freedom. But this freedom can feel raw, vulnerable. The experience of the grievance, the long period of waiting, has left its mark. The mind can feel like a shattered object, and the impulse is to see this breakage as damage, as a flaw that diminishes its worth. We believe the goal is to become perfect again, to be as we were before the fall. But there is a far more beautiful and profound way, one that comes from the ancient Japanese art of kintsugi. In Japan, when a cherished piece of pottery, a teacup, a bowl, is dropped and breaks, it is not thrown away. It is seen as being at the beginning of a new, more beautiful journey. A master craftsman will carefully gather every piece, every shard. They do not curse the object for its fragility. They handle it with reverence. Then, with immense patience, they begin the slow work of repair. They use a special lacquer to bind the pieces back together, and into this lacquer, they mix fine powders of pure gold, silver, or platinum. They do not try to hide the cracks. Instead, they illuminate them. They trace the lines of fracture with precious metal, making them the most striking feature of the piece. When the work is finished, the teacup is not just repaired, it is transformed. It is considered more beautiful, more valuable, and more resilient than it was in its original unbroken state. The web of golden seams becomes a map of its history. The breakage is no longer a story of damage, but a story of healing. This is the philosophy of wabi-sabi, finding beauty in the imperfect, the transient, and the incomplete. The cracks are not a flaw. They are the proof of the object's journey and its strength. You are this teacup. Life, through a person or an event, has dropped you. The shock of betrayal or neglect has caused you to feel as though you have shattered into 1,000 pieces. The common response is one of shame. We try to hide our cracks. We want to appear whole, unaffected, as if nothing ever happened. The waiting for an apology is part of this. It is the hope that someone else will provide an invisible glue that will make us look as good as new, erasing the evidence of our pain. Kintsugi offers a revolutionary alternative. It invites you to see your healing not as an act of erasure, but as an act of illumination. It asks you to gather your own broken pieces with reverence. The piece that holds your anger, the piece that holds your deep sadness, the piece that holds the feeling of foolishness or shame. You discard none of them. They are all precious parts of you. And what is the gold you will use to mend yourself? The gold is the wisdom you are discovering on this very journey. It is the compassion you are learning to show to your own shadow. It is the resilience you forged in the quiet darkness of the waiting room. It is the profound strength you discovered when you realized the cage door was unlocked. Every insight, every moment of self-awareness, every choice to tend to your inner garden instead of staring at another's. This is the precious gold. Your healing, then, is not about going back to who you were before the hurt. That person is gone, and that is a good thing. The goal is to integrate your experience into a new, more expansive version of yourself. You trace the lines of your wound with the gold of self-love and awareness. You allow your history to become a part of your beauty, not a stain upon it. The you that emerges from this process is infinitely more interesting, more compassionate, and more profound than the one who had never been broken. Your cracks become the source of your light. They are the testament that you were broken open, not just broken apart, allowing a deeper strength and a more authentic beauty to shine through. So look upon your wounds not as a source of shame, but as the sacred lines where the gold will go. As you stand with the golden lacquer of wisdom in your hands, ready to mend the broken vessel of the self, you must begin with the primary fracture. You must go to the place where the impact was most deeply felt. Within every person who holds a grievance, there is a younger, more vulnerable part of the self that has been frozen in time. It is the part that experienced the first arrow, the part that has been sitting in the quiet room, waiting, Psychologists call this the inner child. It is the echo of you from a time when you were more open, more trusting, and perhaps less equipped to defend yourself. The apology you have been seeking from another is not truly for the you that exists today, the one who is stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The apology was always for them. It was for that younger self who couldn't make sense of the pain, who internalized the hurt, and who concluded that their worth must be conditional. It is this part of you that must be healed, and it cannot be healed by a proxy. It needs to be met by the one person who can truly understand its pain, your own present, conscious self. So now, we move from philosophy to practice. This is the sacred work of mending. In the quiet space of your mind, allow an image to form. Let it be an image of the part of you who was wounded. Perhaps it is you as a small child. Perhaps it is you as a teenager or a young adult at the very age the hurt occurred. See this version of you clearly. See them in that room we spoke of, sitting on a chair, their gaze fixed on the door. See the patience, the sadness, and the flicker of hope in their eyes. They are waiting for someone to come and tell them they are okay, that the pain will end, that they are still worthy of love. Now, imagine your present-day self, the consciousness that is listening to these words, the one who has walked this journey of understanding. Imagine this wise, compassionate self opening the door and stepping into the room. You do not stand over this younger self with authority. You kneel down or pull up a chair so that you are at their level. You look into their eyes and you let them see in your face that you are not here to judge or to rush them. You are here to finally deliver the message they have been waiting for. And then, speaking silently from your heart, you give them the apology that truly matters. You begin by validating their pain. You say, "I see you. I'm here now. I know how much you have been hurting, and for how long you have been holding this. What happened to you was not okay. It was not fair, and your pain is real and valid. Let them feel the truth of this. Let them feel the profound relief of being truly seen. Then, you offer the apology for your own absence. You say, "And I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that I left you here to wait alone for so long. I'm sorry that I taught you to look to the person who hurt you for your healing. I didn't know then, but I made you believe that your peace was in their hands, and that was a burden you should never have had to carry. That was my job. My job was to protect you, to comfort you. I am sorry I abandoned you in search of a key that was never coming." Finally, you make the promise that changes everything. You say, "But your wait is over now. I am here, and I will not leave you again. You do not need their apology anymore, because I am giving you my attention, my validation, and my love. I will be the one to keep you safe. I will be the one who listens to your feelings. Together, we will heal this." Feel the meaning of these words. An apology from another is a request for their own forgiveness. This act is an offering of your own love. An external apology is a gamble. It may be insincere or it may never come. This internal acknowledgement is a certainty. It is always available, always pure, and infinitely more powerful. This is the act of kintsugi. This is you, the master craftsman, lovingly applying the first layer of gold. You are becoming the parent, the healer, and the safe harbor you have been searching for outside of yourself. You are bringing your own lost child home when the lost child within is finally held. When the apology is given from the self to the self, a great stillness can begin to descend upon the inner world. The story that drank your water has faded. The thirsty ghost has been satisfied, not by an external offering, but by the living waters of your own compassion. The frantic energy of waiting, of pleading, of arguing a case in the silent court of the mind subsides, and what is left in its place? At first, it may feel like a void, an unnerving emptiness. The ego, the storyteller, panics in the face of this quiet. For years, the mind was a room cluttered with the heavy furniture of the grievance. There was the enormous, overstuffed armchair of resentment that you sank into every night. There was the sharp-edged table of anger you kept bumping into in the dark. There were cabinets filled with dusty evidence of the past, which you would open and re-examine again and again. This furniture was uncomfortable, but it was familiar. It filled the space. It gave the room its identity. Now, it is gone. In letting go of the need for an apology, you have cleared the room, and the ego looks upon this open space and calls it nothing. It feels a kind of vertigo, a loss of identity. It asks, if I am not the one who was wronged, who am I? If I am not thinking about this injustice, what is there to think about? This fear of emptiness is the ego's last line of defense. But Zen wisdom invites us to look at this space with new eyes and to give it its true name, sunyata. Sunyata is often translated as emptiness, but this translation is misleading to a mind that equates emptiness with lack. Sunyata is not a void. It is a vibrant potentiality. The room is not empty. It is spacious. It is no longer defined by the old, heavy furniture. It is now defined by its own light, its own silence, its own boundless possibility. Before, it could only be a shrine to a past hurt. Now, it can be anything. A dance hall, a library, a sanctuary of peace. This emptiness is not nothingness. It is the freedom from fixed identity. It is the very ground of being. The answer you were seeking through an apology was always an attempt to fill this space. You wanted a word, a sentence, a conclusion from the outside world to come and neatly furnish the room, to resolve the uncomfortable openness of the wound. You wanted someone to tell you how the story ends, but the most profound answer is not found in a word. It is found in the silence that remains when all the words have fallen away. This silence is the resolution. This spaciousness is the healing. The peace you thought an apology would bring was here all along, buried beneath the clutter of your own thinking. Your true nature is not the furniture. It is the room itself. It is the vast, silent, and aware space in which all experiences, both painful and pleasant, arise and pass away. So the practice now becomes one of trusting this silence. As you rest here, you may feel the mind's old habit try to creep back in. It will try to bring in a small new chair of worry or a little table of future planning. This is its nature. Your work is not to fight it, but to gently and repeatedly notice this impulse, and then to relax back into the spaciousness. Rest in the quiet. Feel the peace that exists in the space between your thoughts. This is not a dead, empty peace. It is alive. It is the still, clear water at the bottom of a deep well. This is the peace that passes all understanding. because it is not a peace that can be understood by the thinking mind. It can only be felt, experienced. It is the empty cup, finally ready to receive the fresh tea of the present moment. The search for an answer from the outside world is over, because in the vast, benevolent silence of your own being, you have finally found the answer. It was never a word. It was the space in which all words are born and die. It is home. To rest in the silent, spacious room of the self is to find the source. But life is not static. It is movement. It is flow. Having found the source, we must now learn to become the river that flows from it. The final piece of this deep letting go is to embrace the universal law of anicca, or impermanence. It is the wisdom of allowing life to move through you without resistance. Imagine your consciousness as a great river. It is born in the high, silent mountains of pure awareness, the spaciousness we have just discovered. Its destiny is to flow, to travel through all manner of landscapes on its journey to the sea. Sometimes it flows through beautiful, sunlit meadows. At other times, it must pass through dark canyons and over sharp rocks. The river does not complain. It does not try to cling to the pleasant meadows, nor does it try to avoid the difficult canyons. It understands that its nature is not the landscape, but the flow itself. It is in a constant state of letting go. It lets go of every rock, every riverbank, every single drop of water that comprises it from one moment to the next. For so long, the grievance you held was like a dam built across this river. In waiting for an apology, you were attempting to defy the law of impermanence. You were trying to stop the flow of your own life at the point of the wound. You said, "I will not move on from this spot until the past is changed, until justice is delivered." This act of resistance created a stagnant reservoir behind the dam. In it, the old memories, the anger, and the sadness swirled endlessly, unable to continue their natural journey downstream. The water became murky. Life withered. The work you have done, opening the cage, mending the self, finding the silence, has dismantled this dam. Now, the river of your life can flow freely again. But what does this mean in practice? It means that even in your newfound peace, old feelings or memories may still occasionally surface. A flicker of sadness, an echo of the old anger, a ghost of the past hurt. These are not signs of failure. They are not an indication that the dam is being rebuilt. They are simply leaves floating on the surface of the river. The old habit of the mind, the habit of the dam builder, was to see such a leaf, snatch it from the water, and declare an emergency. The mind would hold up the leaf and shout, "See, the pain is still here. Nothing has changed." It would build a new story around this single leaf, stopping the entire flow once again. The wisdom of the river is to practice non-attachment. When you see a leaf of sadness float by on the surface of your awareness, you simply acknowledge it. Ah, there is sadness. You see it. You may even feel its texture for a moment, but you do not grab onto it. You do not build a story around it. You do not condemn yourself for its presence. You simply allow the great, steady current of your awareness to carry it along. You watch as it floats by and eventually disappears around the bend. You have allowed it to be, and you have allowed it to go. You have remained the river, not the leaf. This is the art of living in flow. It is a profound trust in the process of life. You can feel everything, but you are not defined by any one feeling. You are the flowing presence that allows all things to come and go. Rest in this feeling now. Feel the gentle current of your own breath, flowing in, flowing out. Each exhale is a perfect lesson in letting go. Feel the sensations in your body arise and pass. Notice thoughts appearing at the edge of your awareness and dissolving without a trace. You are not clinging to anything. You are not resisting anything. You are simply flowing. This is true freedom. It is not a static state to be achieved and protected, but a dynamic, graceful, and continuous dance with reality. You are no longer stagnant. You are the river, and your destiny is the vast, peaceful ocean. Our journey began in a quiet room, waiting for a letter that would never arrive. We saw how the mind carries the burdens of the past like the monk carrying the woman across the river. We learned of the two arrows and how the deepest pain comes not from the wound, but from the story we tell ourselves about it. We faced the shadow in the mirror, the part of us that clings to the grievance. We learned to tend to our own inner garden, realizing the apology we sought was a flower on land we could not control. And then, a turning point. We discovered the cage door was never locked. We learned to see our wounds not as shames to be hidden, but as cracks to be filled with the gold of our own wisdom, like the art of kintsugi. We finally offered the apology ourselves, to the part of us that needed it most. We rested in the vast, silent emptiness of sunyata and learned to flow with the river of life, letting go of each moment as it passes. And so we arrive here, at the end of the journey, only to realize we have arrived where we always were. The peace you were seeking, the feeling of wholeness you believed an apology would grant you, was never in the possession of another person. It was never theirs to give. It was here all along. It is the very nature of your own being, temporarily obscured by the clouds of thought and the story of a wound. You were like a person searching frantically for a precious jewel, tearing the world apart to find it, only to look in a still pool of water and see it hanging around your own neck. It was always yours. The apology you were waiting for was a phantom key, promising to unlock a door to a treasure that was already in your own heart. The validation you sought from their words was but a faint echo of the profound, unshakable validation that comes from your own silent awareness. The closure you craved was not a story with a neat ending, but the gentle closing of the book itself, and the return to the quiet peace of the library of your own soul. There was never anything truly broken. There was only a vessel, being reshaped by life into something more beautiful and more profound. The wound was not a punishment. It was a portal. The pain was the pressure that forced you to turn inward, to dig deeper, to go on this very journey to uncover a strength and a peace you might never have otherwise known. In this way, the person who hurt you and the apology that never came were unwitting guides, harsh teachers who pointed you back toward the one place you had forgotten to look. Within, so now, there is nothing left to do. There is nowhere to go. There is no one to wait for. The search is over. Allow this knowing to settle into every cell of your body. Let it be the gentle wave that washes away the last grains of resentment. Let it be the soft light that fills every dark corner of the mind. The part of you that was waiting can finally rest. The part of you that was wounded can finally heal. The part of you that felt incomplete can finally know its own inherent wholeness. You are the stillness beneath the noise. You are the sky that holds the clouds. You are the silence that answers every question. Rest now. Rest in the peace that was, is, and always will be. Yours. Your peace was not in their words, but in your silence.